that Tirana will provide shelter for hundreds of Afghans who worked with the Western governments. Thank you so much for joining us. I believe you're in Slovenia today. Talk me through the thinking for Albania about welcoming Afghan refugees.
It came very natural to us because only 30 years ago we were the Afghans on the other side of the Adriatic coast, trying to find shelter in Italy and more so in Europe by desperately escaping the Red Taliban of Tirana. And in the meantime, during the Kosovo War, we opened our doors to shelter 500,000 refugees escaping the ethnic cleansing from Slobodan Milosevic in Belgrade. And so we are well acquainted with all sides of tyranny, both when left in the hands of a brutal regime and when it's seeking to build a new life as refugees in other countries. So those experiences have taught us that it is not really the danger that creates the fear, but the fear that creates the danger from people coming to find shelter while escaping death.
And do you believe your sentiment is shared by most Albanians? Because, you know, we have seen borders closed to Afghan refugees in a number of countries that would have had a history of being refugees themselves.
It's really something that it's heartbreaking because, as a matter of fact, only a few weeks ago, all these countries, as NATO members, were the main source of support for the people of Afghanistan. So receding like shadows alongside the ideals, principles and promise of freedom that we made over 2 decades is just heartbreaking. And, you know, the world's most powerful military alliance built to uphold those ideals becoming a spineless entity in the eyes of the Afghan people and millions of people everywhere who crave to live in free, just, democratic society is really not what should happen. It's really not what should be. Anyhow,
and do you believe that? Do you believe they are also a spineless entity?
No, I'm saying how this unfortunately looks for the time being, and how this unfortunately can affect the image of our part of the world that so millions and I don't know, hundreds of millions of people look like their own future destiny, hoping to have the same in their countries where they crave for justice, they crave for freedom. It's frankly, you know. But in the meantime, to answer your question, first of all, I'm very, very proud that the majority of the Albanians feel the same and would do the same. But in the meantime, I think that these are moments when goals are more important than polls, by principle.
Goals than polls. You know, I'm looking at some photographs here, Prime Minister, that I just want to talk my radio listeners through. It's people arriving from Afghanistan, coming down those stairs of Qatar Airlines, being met on the tarmac by the ambassador. Then there's a picnic that's taking place. You're playing basketball, I think, with some of the children that had also arrived. And it is incredibly moving. But how long do you think the people that have been evacuated, will they stay in Albania? Do you expect them to integrate into Albanian society, or is this a stop before they may make their next move elsewhere?
Listen, we were approached by, first of all, we were approached by several entities, foundations, collectivities of civil society beyond the ocean in US, and then including also the Yalda Hakim Foundation on this side, and we said immediately yes. And then, of course, we were approached by the U.S. government, and we said immediately yes. Now, the rationale of all this is that these people are potentially eligible to get visa and to go in the United States, which makes the stay temporary, theoretically. But first of all, I think this will take time because with so many people that the U.S. planes have moved out and they have to process in different parts of Europe and elsewhere. This will take time. Secondly, whatever it will take, we will be here for them. You know, we cannot forget our history. We cannot disrespect our code of honor, which is something that comes from very long ago and made Albania the only country in Europe having more Jews after the Second World War than before, exactly because no Jew was given up. And there were Albanians that paid with their life to simply save them. And I strongly believe we owe it to our children. Our children should inherit all this, and we have to honor this heritage, and they have to honor it also when their time will come.
You mentioned the Yalda Hakim Foundation there. My radio listeners probably know that Yalda is one of our foreign correspondents who anchors Impact with Yalda Hakim on BBC World News. She is Afghan herself and has done a lot of philanthropy within her country as well. But I'm curious about now, Prime Minister. You know, we're hearing from the US Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, that this opens a new chapter of engagement with Afghanistan now that chapter has closed on that part of the war with Afghanistan. Taliban are in control. Do you believe the promises that the Taliban are putting forward, that they will respect girls' and women's rights within the, as they say, within the limits of Islamic law?
For the sake of the people that didn't have the luck to escape and for 20 years experienced something completely different than what the Taliban are offering, I would very much love that this would be true. But having lived in a regime very brutal and very similar, although not Islamist but purely atheist, that banned God from our lives and that blew up with dynamite more than 2,000 churches and Roman chapels and monasterium and mosques. I cannot fool myself and believe it. You know, it doesn't match with the world we believe in and the world we live in and with the world we represent, and of course with the world that the Afghans that trusted us, that followed us, that worked for us were dreaming. So yeah, I would love this to be true, but unfortunately I cannot. I just cannot believe it.
So there is skepticism there, as very much we have heard expressed here in this room. I'm at the Afghanistan and Central Asian Centre in West London. People that are coming here desperately trying to find out information, trying to figure out what avenues may be open to them. A lot of them hoping that their loved ones will come from Afghanistan, that will be able to be repatriated to here. Many thinking within the coming weeks or months, but what we're hearing instead, of course, it could take longer than that. I mean, do you believe that those who will want to leave will be able to leave in the coming weeks, even if the Taliban, as they do, have control of the airport? And I just have under a minute.
It's all to be seen, but again, history can help in these cases. You don't really need to have a crystal ball, because it's enough to look back to the history of brutal, totalitarian, totally ideological regimes to understand that for them, everyone that is different from them is a traitor, to be killed, to be jailed, to be tortured, and to be persecuted his whole life.
Edi Rama is the Prime Minister of Albania, and they have taken a number of Afghan refugees in, opened them with open arms.